on their lives and the lives of their families. Our amendments offer the Government a chance to show belatedly on an issue that matters that they understand women's priorities. I commend our amendments to this House.
The question is that the amendment be made. Jenny Willett.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Slightly earlier in the debate than I was expecting. I would like to speak briefly on...
Jenny Willett.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Slightly earlier in the debate than I was expecting. I would like to speak briefly on the amendments tabled by the Honourable Member for Cumbernauld, Kilsyth and Kirkintilloch East, as well as the Secretary of State and the Government's amendments. I know we're going to have a fuller debate later on this afternoon, but much of what is in this bill, I think, has complete agreement across the House. A lot of it is extremely welcome. But this is the one issue which seems to have outweighed all of the other issues in the bill, the changes to state pension age, and seems to have overshadowed a lot of the other issues. As I said, Madam Deputy Speaker, during the second reading, I and many of my Liberal Democrat colleagues were deeply concerned about the effect of these changes on women who are being asked to work significantly longer at short notice. The Honourable Member who's just spoken, I'm not going to repeat his constituency a second time. I think doing it once is an achievement. But I think we all accept, and he said so as well, that the state pension age does have to rise. We are all living longer. The gains in life expectancy have been significant and keep continuing. In 1970, someone reaching 60 could expect to live for 18 years. Last year, that had risen to 28 years. That has a significant financial burden on the state. By the time I retire, I fully expect the retirement age to be somewhere north of the 70s. So, you know, goodness knows if there is still a state pension by that point. But when we are increasing state pension age, we do need to make sure that it's done as fairly as possible. And I and my colleagues, a number of whom are here today, have been very vocal in our efforts to get the timetable changed. And I know that the Minister and his colleagues in the Department of Work and Pensions have been very active working within government to try and make sure that the timetable is fairer and that to ensure that those who are worst affected by these changes are protected. The initial draft timetable, in my view, Madam Deputy Speaker, was not fair to those women who were worst affected. And I'm very pleased that the Government has listened to the concerns that were raised by many, many people and has tabled the amendments today, and I'm sure the Minister will tell us more about them in his summating later on. I'll give way.
Honourable Lady for giving way. I hear what she has to say, but can she explain to the 300,000 women who will have to wait longer than anybody else, who will have to wait between a year and 18 months to receive their state pension, can she explain to them why they should have to pay more of the burden than anyone else?
I will include in my remarks in the future, in the rest of my speech, comments that relate to the points that the Honourable Lady made. But I do think that capping the state pension age increase to a maximum of 18 months will protect, as we've already heard, it's 250,000 women, but it's also 250,000 men. So there are 500,000 people who will be better off as a result of the amendments that have been tabled by the Government. And that, as we've heard also, is costing over £1 billion. I'm very grateful to the Secretary of State and the Minister for managing to get £1 billion out of the Treasury. That is no mean feat. And it's one of the issues that we have with anything to do with pensions, that any changes to the state pension, the costs are into the billions, not the millions, which makes it extremely difficult. I will make some progress first, which makes it extremely difficult for small changes to be made. And given that the financial circumstances, the issue with both debt and deficit that we were discussing earlier, and the fact that other departments are asking for money into the millions rather than the billions, convincing officials at the Treasury convincing them to try and be more generous can't be easy. And I do appreciate that, I hope we all appreciate that £1 billion going to these 500,000 people is a significant amount of money that the Government has found. I'll give way to the gentleman.
Just very briefly, I mean, from the tenor of her remarks, she sounds that she's satisfied with the concession that the Minister has achieved, and I congratulate him on the distance that he has gone. I'm not underestimating the difficulty. But is she confident that the women in her constituency who will still be affected are as easily persuadable as she is?
I was just going to move on to the fact that while I am delighted by the changes, in an ideal world I would have liked to have seen us go further. I would like to see the cap closer to 12 months than 18 months, but we're not in an ideal world, and the cost associated with that is significant. The cost of capping at 12 months, I understand, would have been closer to £3 billion, which is a significant amount of money to find. And it would have been an uphill struggle to try and find that money, and I do understand that. I think that we do have to appreciate the scale of the money that has been found to make things worse for the women that are worst affected. There has been a broad coalition campaigning on this subject, including Age UK and Saga, and members of all parties across the House who have been working on this issue. And I feel that some have been extremely constructive in their campaigning and in the pressure that they have put on the government. Others have been, at times, slightly less constructive. I think we have heard from the Labour frontbench today, and some of what has been proposed by the party opposite is I think, unrealistic, and has, no, not immediately, I will make some progress. And I feel that some of what has been put forward has been less constructive and less helpful to try and make as much progress as we would like to see to try and help the women who are most affected. The Labour amendments that have been tabled both at committee stage and that we are debating here today to delay the entire increase by 2 years is not sensible or realistic. Regardless of what the Honourable Member for Cumbernauld, Kilsyth and Kirkintilloch says, £10 billion is a huge black hole in the public finances, and that is a significant amount of money that the government would have to find. I'm told it's closer to £11 billion. That is a significant amount of money to try and identify, and I'm not going to enter the debate about debt versus deficit again, but there is a huge black hole if the Labour Party is proposing something that costs an unfunded promise of £11 billion. And I'll give way to the Honourable Member on the front bench.
Just a very simple question for the Honourable Lady. Why take that money from these women?
I'd be grateful if he could clarify to us where that money would come from that he's proposing. At the moment, unless we tackle the financial crisis in this country, no, I will not give way for a moment. Unless we tackle, no, I won't take interventions for a moment. Unless we tackle the financial circumstances that we are facing, my child, our children, our grandchildren will be paying off that debt. This is a debt that we do have to tackle, and we do have to find. It's real money that does need to be found, and a £10 billion black hole is a significant black hole to be found. I'll give way to the Honourable Lady.
Lady can explain where the government's finding the £1 billion that's needed to make the change that's already announced today.
I'm really sorry, but I cannot tell the Honourable Member where the Minister has found the money. I would like to, I'm sure she can ask that same question to the Minister and he can respond later on. I would give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
I'm very grateful for you giving way. I'm sure we all have great sympathy with the women who have been most adversely affected by these changes. But do you not agree with me that it would be a far more credible argument from the party opposite if they were able to tell us where they would make up the difference, and then we would be able to decide, as opposed to just telling us that this only £11 billion, we should find it from somewhere else?
I completely agree. I think we have to understand there is strength of feeling across the House that this is not something in an ideal world that I think any of us would want to see. I think there is not for a moment. I think we all accept that the state pension age is going to have to increase. We are living longer, and there is a black hole in the finances. In an ideal world, I've already said I would like to see the increase in a moment. I would like to see the increase capped at 12 months, but we are not in an ideal world, and we have to find a compromise that is workable, that is affordable. And I do appreciate that there are women who are going to be affected negatively by the proposals today, and I'm sure that we all have a huge amount of sympathy for those affected, but I am glad that the government has found the resources needed to try and mitigate the difficulties that are facing those who are most severely affected. I'll give way to the Honourable Lady.
I'm very grateful to the Honourable Lady for giving way. Would you not agree that in politics choices are constantly made, and there are a number of choices which can be made? There are those, for example, who are arguing that at an early date the 50% tax rate should be reduced. There are those who might argue that the generous tax reliefs that are given to people who contribute to pension schemes or on higher rate tax could be ended with substantial savings. So would you not agree that there are always choices, and it's not just a question of saying where will you find that particular sum of money?
I think it's very clear from what I've been saying today that I completely accept, and I think we all understand, we're all involved in political decisions, in the political debates of the day. Clearly, it's a matter of priorities and of choices. And as I've said, in an ideal world, I would like to see the cap reduced. However, given the financial circumstances, I think that what we have before us today, proposed by the government, is a compromise that I can accept. That I do understand that there are people who are still going to be negatively affected. However, I think that we have made significant progress. A lot of women, 500,000 women, 500,000 men, are going to benefit from the proposals today. And I think that that is something that we do have to, I accept as a positive compromise.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. She's made the point that we're not in an ideal world, and a large part of the reason we're not in the world that we would like to be in is because the Labour Party, when they were in government, left us with a record deficit. And now we're talking about another £10 billion. Does she agree with me that it is absolutely ludicrous suggestion on the Labour Party's part to talk about unfunded commitments, and actually they should be apologising for the mess that they left the country in?
I think that we do need today to focus on what is realistic and what is affordable. We are talking about a bill that is going to be implemented. This is going to affect people's lives. We need to make sure that the state pension is affordable and sustainable long into the future. I want to be able to receive a state pension that I've paid into when I come to retire, as I'm sure everybody across this House and out in the country would agree. I do welcome the fact that the Labour front bench does now seem to be more positive towards the proposals that have been put forward today, and they are prepared to accept that that the government has moved, and that is of significant benefit to a large number of women, even if the realistic approach seems to be somewhat lacking in the amendments that they've tabled.
Honourable Lady for giving way. Isn't the hand-wringing that's going on between 12 months, 18 months and billions here and there show the utter vanity that is the UK's position on spending billions and billions on Trident nuclear weapons when we're finding difficulty to pay money for old age pensioners?
The honourable gentleman tempts me into an area that I'm afraid I'm not going to follow him. It is an issue for another day, I believe, though my position is probably not too dissimilar from his. However, given the financial circumstances and the constraints that the government faces, I do think that today we have a good deal that has been put forward. The government's amendments substantially mitigate the worst problems, and I think we do need to bear in mind £1 billion is a huge amount of money. I do hope now that the Minister will be able to concentrate on introducing a flat-rate pension for those whose retirement age is increased. That would make a massive difference to the amount that people get from their basic state pension when they do retire, and will benefit women in particular. I hope the Minister can confirm today that he's still planning to bring in a flat-rate pension aiming for 2016, so that those women who are affected by the state pension age increase that we are discussing today will be the first or amongst the first beneficiaries of that flat-rate pension, so that although they are likely to they're going to retire later, they will then retire on a significantly enhanced state pension, which will mitigate some of the financial implications of the bill today. I would just like to conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, by saying that I do commend the Minister and his colleagues in the Department for their efforts and their achievements at managing to part £1 billion from the Treasury to make these changes better, so that those who are hardest hit have the effect mitigated. And I do hope that he continues to work to improve the retirement income for both men and women.
Malcolm Wicks.
Madam